G'day guys and welcome to a preview of Rosehill for the 3rd of June. Rails out 6, should be a good track. Should play on pace and inside, and getting a couple off in the straight will be okay, but definitely up there and in will be an advantage, even more so than it has been recently, you would imagine. Pretty deep card with quite a few runners, and does look to be a few angles, but a few tough races as well, so hopefully a good mix and we'll get through it. Starting with race 1, the 2-year-olds. Open handicap. And Intrinsic comes up favourite off a Wyong maiden win. I know there's a big spruik to this horse, and there's obviously a favourite goes around up in Brisbane today too, out of that race. I'm not sure why they've sort of clamped onto it as a great race. They ran okay time off a slowish pace, so it wasn't too bad, but it was just a 2-year-old filly's maiden at a provincial meeting, and now has to go to city form. Obviously draws gate 1 and Abdullah. Positive Things has a bit of pace and definitely has scope for improvement, but not a horse that I've really clamped onto. The horse I'm quite interested in, and unfortunately the early price is gone, is a horse called Kanga's Eye. Going back to the Jim Crack, I think it was, no real... not that relevant at this time as it was such a while ago, and then a lot of these horses have improved, but this is Kanga's Eye out the back. He used to start badly. Bit of a slow tempo this day. Does hug the rails and get inside runs, but held up there and charges late at 100 to 1 this day, and should have been winning. Been back to the trial since, came down the outside here without any pressure and did okay at the first trial back over the 740, then stepped up to the 900 this time, again eased out of it, back to second last here, and comes through the middle under no pressure at all. Looks to have come back really well. A little concern where it's going to get to into the run. I'm pretty sure they'll ride this horse pretty quiet, but any luck in it inside sort of runs, it's the one to hold out, definitely. Hard to find clear dangers. There does look a bit of tempo in the race. Probably, Last Starfighter, Renovateur, Pendeloaks definitely probably looks the leader from the inside gate with the Apprentice. Intrinsic could be up there on the inside, so probably the horse that gets the right runs. Revenue, coming off a solid win over 1,000 metres at the provincials first up, didn't look to be a horse that wanted to be sitting outside the leader there, so for it to get up outside the leader over 1,000 and finish the race off strongly was a good sign. 1,200 probably looks more suitable, and if it takes a sit, it's probably second pick for mine. I do like the horse Charlie Chap, just a little bit concerned about where it's going to get to into the run here, but out of that race, it comes from that Viridine race. It's probably the only one I want to be following, and definitely is hard fit and does look to find the right spot here. So, in a race that looks to have limited chances, I think, well, actually the other horse I'm interested in is Falconic, but where it's going to get to, and if there is a bunch and it gets to the outside with a 3-wide cart or something, it is the Blouser. So probably worth mentioning it, but for me, Kanga's Eye, clear top pick, any luck, and it's definitely the one to beat. I'd have it, if it was Randwick, I'd have it quite a short price favourite. Next pick, Revenue with a nice run, Charlie Chap and Falconic. I'm looking to risk Intrinsic this time from the inside gate. Abdullah's going to be very hungry to try and find winners and kick away in this Jockey's Premiership, but I'm not completely convinced by this horse at this stage, and definitely don't really want to chime into it as favourite, coming from a provincial maiden win. Race 2, and this horse New Universe goes around for the 3rd time. This preparation again looks to draw nicely. Beat a pretty solid bias last time. I'm doubting it'll get that far back this time. Back up to the 1,200, probably doesn't need to get that far back, and there isn't mad pace involved. There's only sort of Albeit Sam, who really wants to look for the front, and then maybe Good Time Charlie Test the World coming across from their outside gates and and Palladian holding a spot from the inside. So there does look a spot midfield for New Universe this time if they want to hold a spot. Avdullah's usually pretty keen to do that, so he's an interesting runner again and looks a clear favourite. Faraway Town's a horse that interests me. Again, it's not going to be suited by the pattern here. I think it's more suited to these sprint trips than Fresh. It races well this way and going to get a nice bit of weight relief from Brock Ryan and 6 kilos off the top weight, so he can run a cheeky race. Just looks going really well for mine, but he's going to get back on the inside and need a lot of luck. Mediterranean's hard to line up. We don't know where it gets to from the gate, and probably one I'm looking to bet around today. Albeit Sam's I'm not going to say a limited horse, but it's an honest horse with good pace, and big rev up in a trial recently says they're going to go forward and make this a test. No weight on his back. He'll give them something to chase, and if the pattern is heavily in leader's favour, he's definitely the one to run down, and looks reasonably priced around the $6.50 mark. Palladian comes off a bit of a failure, but there was an excuse there. Draws the right gate, looks behind the leader chance, and at 40 to 1, at least looks a good place chance down in the weights. One to throw in your multiples and test the world. If they choose to go forward from this outside gate, he's a pretty untapped sort of conveyance. I know he's had every possible chance at both runs back, but to jump 1,000 to 12 last start, I think he's going to progress again here, fitness-wise, and that can only see him improving. It's just a matter of whether he gets the right run from that gate, any luck early, and it's possible that he can come across with Good Time Charlie and either slot in behind him or even if he sits outside the leader here, I can't see them going too hard that will really affect his chances. So Universe is the one to beat, nice and short though. I think Albeit Sam will run along and probably the one to run down. Test the World, Palladian next pick, and Faraway Town's obviously a nice little rough if it gets out to 20 to 1 plus. I could definitely entertain having something on it at odds. Race 3. And a tricky little race for mine, this. And another favourite here in Dagny, who comes up fairly short. It goes up 4 kilos, 100 metres off an every chance run where it was third the fence last time. It'll probably get another decent enough run, probably 4th or 5th here maybe. Touch close, could be 3rd. And should see its chance. Just not overly excited to step into that price. Wangwa is going very well. The extra 100 metres is in its favour. It's just a matter of sort of where it gets positioned and the apprentice taking over. I think Cottage is a horse that can be forgiven its first up run. Draws to probably hold the leaders back, and that's an interesting spot for her to come from. She has shown ability on her day. Labian's the horse I want to bet around. I thought it found the right spot last time and didn't have too much improvement. Would find a more difficult position this time, and I thought it was short enough, and the one that I couldn't find. Ruby Rampart is going well. Can improve. I think it needs to go forward to be really competitive here, but an each way chance either way. Probably one for in run players if it bounces. Its price will shorten dramatically. Countess Marinov's also just doesn't seem to be going well enough, even though it looks well set up here and should roll forward from that wide gate and run a positive race. I'm just not sure it's got the firepower to hold off a couple of these runners late. It's another race that I'm not too excited about, with prices not really too interesting. Even Cottage, around $12, you'd expect better than that off that first up run to want to be backing it with any purpose, really. You could have something small on it, I guess, but Dagny, Wangwa, Cottage, Ruby Rampart, the winning chances for mine, and nothing too exciting there to want to chime into. Race 4, the Highway, and funny race this with really wide range of form coming into it. You've got Barbas coming off the good scone run last start. It was just given very little hope. They went hard, sat wide where the fence was good at Parks that day, and headed with a big weight. Was just, sorry, not lightweight it had that day, but was just given a little hope, and that was back in distance as well, 14 to 12, back suited back up to the 14. The senior jockey takes over, even though it's got the big weight, it'll roll forward and run a race here. There are quite a few in the betting that want to roll forward. Cliff is a hard-going type. It's been racing quite well. It goes forward. Back to 1400 looks a positive for him. The favourite I couldn't find at all, this horse, Zamex. Had won 2 races early in its career, coming from well back off. And they were quite average kind of races, really. Much lower standard than City here, even though it's won at Eagle Farm. Went out, came back from a spell, ran an okay race first up in a pretty solid 3-year-old open. Dropped back a little bit in distance, was really one-paced and got to the line okay in another open, but an average sort of open at the Gold Coast. Now draws inside, looks like it'll get back and need plenty of luck, and not really sure why it's a $3.20 chance. Expect that to change a touch. Mr. Marmalade first up for Danny Williams, 1400 metres is interesting. It's definitely suited if it's fit. Inside gate, and should hold the position right behind the speed. Probably 3 back the fence at worst. And Autumn has pace and tough. Apparently stepping up to 1800 metres following this, so you'd expect it to be putting the pressure on from out wide and running a really positive race as well. Nothing really ticks all the boxes here. I'm probably most interested in Cliff and Autumn. Cliff at around the $10 mark and Autumn around the $7 mark, with Mr. Marmalade, the one camping right behind them. And I'm not surprised if Barbass or Zamex win, but I think they're well found at around the $4.50 and $3.20 mark. There don't look too many surprises down below. Maybe Marco Man with the lightweight, could be the swooper coming off a track that was not suited to his style last start off. A good win first up from a long break, so it's possibly the improver at the big odds. Race 5. And funny little race here. Elvenation probably rolls forward and leads, jumping 300 metres in trip, suited with Anim Hieronymus in his style. I think this horse will probably roll this time. I doubt that the sit sprint helped it last start, and it's one that can probably really give them something to chase here and could be a pretty solid improver. I think around the $12 mark's fair enough price for him. The horses that look to stalk him are horses like Just Dreaming, and I'm hoping Walk the Streets rolls forward from gate 12. And I think those 3 can pretty much dominate the race from that position. I think Just Dreaming is probably the one that's a little bit more limited and of similar ability to, say, Elvenation, and probably not quite as well set up with the apprentices well. So I'll be very surprised if... I would be surprised, sorry, if Elvenation was the leader and Walk the Streets was the one coming after it, if they choose to roll forward. Horses like other horses in the betting, Kadiro, gate 13, big weight and change of rider, looks a huge query. It's going to give them a big start. Bacardi Rose is a horse that's on the up, but it draws inside and gets the apprentice. Another couple of queries there. Volpe comes from Goulburn form. I know he's going very well, but he looks... up in grade, and then even out to Wanker coming off that run last start, and Fleeting Strike, who I think is going very well, is also going to give them a start. So I'm worried about Wanker over the 15. So it just looks to me to be a nice little race for the 2 horses, Elvenation and Walk the Streets, with Just Dreaming the one I'd probably save on to make sure I didn't lose on the race and make the other 2 a good result. Race 6. Primal Flight looks to be the one that rolls forward and leads. Girl Sunday, fitter for 2 runs back, rolls forward, sits outside it, and is the horse to beat for mine. Really well set up here, and this is its race. Wild and Famous is obviously going very well, doesn't seem to win out of turn, and gets the right run right behind those 2, you would imagine, with First Hand. Picking Wild and Famous definitely over First Hand in that battle. Swooper for me is Reincarnate with the apprentice aboard. Thought its run was very good first up, and it can improve, but it's not a race, that really sets up for those horses. It looks, I think it will be a pretty much on pace dominated race again, with Girl Sunday sort of kicking clear, and horses like Wild and Famous and First Hand looking to get clear off that inside and chase out after it. And then the knockouts are Reincarnate and Invincible Knight. I don't see too much in the way of upsets here. They definitely look the winning chances, and pretty confident about making Girl Sunday and a solid winner, and possibly just saving on a couple to chop out. But Girl Sunday looks well placed here for mine. Race 7. This is a much more difficult race. Apparently Supply and Demand's going to this race. We've got So Willie in it backing up off the 1600 metre run last week where they Cornell the race. So Willie was well ridden there, but still had a few things against it and really dominant over Supply and Demand. You'd imagine that would the only thing that would change that would be a really solid on-pace bias if they decided to lead and run along with Supply and Demand, which is possible. Up to this trip, it is a very hard fit racehorse, and that position does look definitely up for grabs if they can bluff 0 to 10 out of it, which shouldn't be that difficult. So it's an interesting horse. So Willie gets back from the gate, I assume, up to 1800 metres for the first time in a while, but it's going so well it's hard to knock it. I thought Montauk was really well placed here. It's had no luck its last couple of starts. If it can hold a position from that inside gate and be there turning, it definitely looks suited back to 1800 metres. And with this setup, even though its record at Rosehill is poor, I think it's a much better horse now than when most of that record was established, and it can run a positive race. Most of the other runners are not that well set up and really need to improve. Toucan Choose an interesting horse. Second up 1800 metres off a Melbourne run, but does look decently placed and can hold a spot midfield. God's in him looks to be getting back and giving him too big a start. Allegri is interesting with the blinkers on, but probably prefers soft ground. Kellyville Fly is another one that gets the right run, prefers soft. Believe, too bad to be true of late, probably, and can definitely improve with the blinkers off. Its fitness level should be right up there now, and it's the knockout chance. But Supply and Demand, So Willie, Montauk, Believe look the winning hopes here. Toucan Chew, the other possible improver, and Believe's probably more in that frame than a real solid winning chance. It's just a knockout improving hope. Gun to my head, Montauk and Supply and Demand look the ones best set up, with So Willie looking for a bit of luck, but should be strongest late. Race 8. Interesting, this race with Cool Ring, like quite a few of these horses coming out of this Scone race. Sweet Serendipity, I believe, set up at solid tempo. Cool Ring's the one chasing it. It's not an easy job to cart the field up when you've got this sort of tearaway position, especially considering it was jumping from 11 to 1300 this day. Snoopy's back here. Sir Bacchus is well back. So Sir Bacchus is getting the better of the runs. Cool Ring's getting the toughest of the runs. Snoopy's got the cover it needs. Clearly Innocent's obviously come out and franked this form, even though it's dominant here. Reby Rampart, who runs in an earlier race, is back in the right field. But the ones we're sort of more concentrating on here is Cool Ring, Sir Bacchus and Snoopy. And Cool Ring really does quite a good job until very late, when its condition is likely to give out. It's had to change tack there and drag off the heels of the tiring leader, which is not ideal either. It's hurt its momentum. So if it can cross from the outside gate today, I really think it should be peaking fitness wise, and it can definitely hold off Snoopy and Sir Bacchus, who will be backing on the inside and looking for room. Snoopy is drawn ideally, but I just can't really justify the difference in price between Cool Ring at around the $14 mark and Snoopy at around the $4.50 mark. I just think they should be a lot closer together in the market. I'm happy to risk Shiraz first up 1400 off the one trial. I don't really see it being suited here, even though if it had a perfect setup and was coming down the middle and that was suitable, I definitely have it in the race. I think Danish Twist, even though it's had the 2 trials, is probably chasing to peak in a couple of weeks, and I don't think they'll knock her around here too much. Invincible is interesting. It's got the apprentice aboard, no weight, 51.5 kilos, and could easily find a nice little striking position. Talked about Sir Bacchus getting back from the inside, and Zaritza is going to be in a similar position, not really showing too much, but does look dangerous. Old North's got every gear change you've ever seen in your life, and I'm not sure where it'll get to in the run. I'm assuming back. And the other horse that does look very interesting is Royal Tudor. I've probably confused this race a bit, but it went straight to 1600 metres, I think, off 1200 metre run last start. Did have a trial in between, so it's gone 11, 12, straight to 16. And for a horse that's probably stretched at 1600 metres, its effort wasn't too bad. Back to 14, wide gate, will not hurt it, as it should come across with Cool Ring. And it can run a very strong race here. Much better suited at the 14 for mine and fitter now. So for me, I'm interested in Cool Ring and Royal Tudor. I'm very wary of horses like Snoopy, Sir Bacchus, Invincible, who'll be camped right behind them. But the odds on the horses like Royal Tudor around the $15 mark and Cool Ring around the $14 mark definitely do interest me. And I'd probably be happy to play them both for a solid win, and then have Snoopy and Invincible as my chop out horses, hoping they get out a little bit, as they both look a little bit tight. I think Invincible definitely will with the apprentice aboard, and Snoopy usually does and has the rider change as well. So Cool Ring and Royal Tudor, my best ways in race 8. Race 9, not an easy way to finish. Dreamforce and Careless look the best of the on paces. It's not a deep race at all, and there's a lot of runners here that aren't ready to win. So I want to find Leopari. Where's it going to get to from the gate? It's going to need a great ride. It would be favoured if it was a genuine race on a track that was suiting all runners and that sort of thing, but it's going to be in a tough position here and need a great ride. Louis C.K.'s a 1500 metre max horse for mine, and shows up here at that distance, 5 weeks between runs. It's another horse that you'd want to find because he's going to get the right run, but I'm not sure about it. And then the query horses are Reby the Red, second up from a spell after a solid enough effort first up. Got Unders, who's just going to be in the right position and is a tough horse when it finds conditions to suit. And Sultan of Swing, who comes off a complete forgive run in Brisbane last start, definitely has the ability to win this sort of race. It's not a race I want to spend too much time on. I wouldn't be surprised by any result, to tell you the truth. But again, Gundy ahead, I'm saying probably Dreamforce, Careless, Leopari finding something late. With Reby the Red, Got Under, Salt and Swing, definitely throwing most of those in the quaddie in what's a very tough finish to the day. That's pretty much it for this meeting. I do think there are some solid enough betting opportunities there in a couple of races. So hopefully there was something there for everyone, and we have a good day tomorrow. Thanks, guys.